Good evening. Welcome to All People's Church. It is 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night. That must mean we are at Elba, engaged learning of the Bible with application. We are in the Proverbs. And as always, we begin with questions for investigation. I tried to take it a little bit easier on y'all tonight. Most of the Proverbs were written by whom? Is it David, Solomon, Rehoboam, or Lemuel? Large majority say Solomon. We will find out in mere moments. Second question, all of the following are themes of Proverbs 1 through 9. This week we were supposed to read Proverbs 1 through 9. Themes in that reading material are all of the following except financial counsel, work ethic, temple sacrifices, avoiding the wrong kind of woman. All of those are themes in Proverbs 1 through 9, but one. One of them is not a theme. Large majority say temple sacrifices is not one of the themes in Proverbs 1 through 9. Third and final question, the fear of the Lord leads to knowledge and wisdom, blessing and riches, power and glory, anxiety and depression. If you fear the Lord the wrong way, I could see it leading to anxiety and depression. But it's not that one. The large majority of people think it is knowledge and wisdom. We will find out again in mere moments. The topic tonight is wisdom. Really, all of the Proverbs really are about wisdom, but the first 9 chapters really have wisdom as a central focus. Wisdom in several different areas, if I can say it that way. And so we'll talk through quite a bit of that. Let's talk about, first of all, the entire book, just a brief snapshot. Let's talk about the structure of the book. In other words, it's in sections. Not sure if you've ever noticed this as you've read through the Proverbs, but not every chapter looks the same. So when you turn the page from chapter 9 to chapter 10, it's going to look different. The Proverbs proper begin in chapter 10. So these couplets, 2 lines, 2 lines, 2 lines. If you have a paper Bible, possibly in an electronic Bible as well, but if you have a paper Bible and you just zoom out your eyes to look at chapter 10, let's say, you're going to see 2 lines, 2 lines, 2 lines, 2 lines, and each of those 2 lines are going to be separated by a space because each couplet is its own paragraph. There's nothing tying each idea to the next idea per se. It is a collection of proverbs, okay? But chapters 1 through 9 is not set up that way. There are many lines that go, now it's all poetry. It's all kind of formatted with that poetic look as opposed to the prose look like a paragraph. But many lines next to each other in a group. And that's because they go together. There's a flow of thought through chapters 1 through 9. It's kind of a paragraph type approach. It is not just thought here, thought, and the thoughts don't necessarily link. They do link. And so chapters 1 through 9 really can be thought of as an introduction wherein we have counsel from Solomon, who is the author of almost all the Proverbs. Talk about more about that in just a second. But counsel about wisdom in several different areas of life. But again, it has more of a flow to it. Each thought connects to the next thought. And so it's a very different feel in the reading from Proverbs 1 through 9 than it will be starting in chapter 10, where it's Proverbs. One thought at a time, couplets, 2 lines at a time, and each of those couplets is its own idea. Okay. So, chapters 1 through 9, words of wisdom. Chapters 10 through 29 is the collection of Solomon's Proverbs, the actual couplets, okay? And then within chapters 10 through 29, there's another division beginning in chapter 25 through 29. Those are still Solomon's Proverbs, but they are collected by Hezekiah's men. And so 250 to 300 years after Solomon, there's still Solomon's writings, but they're a separate collection that was collected later. So 10 to 24, Proverbs of Solomon, 25 to 29, also the Proverbs of Solomon, but collected by Hezekiah's men. And then the last 2 chapters of the book don't have anything to do with Solomon. It's Agur, A-G-U-R, is the author of Proverbs 30, and Lemuel, King Lemuel, is the author of Proverbs 31. Of course, we don't see the name Lemuel in the list of kings, where we went through, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, and so we assume that he is therefore not a king of Israel or Judah, but somehow we don't really know him real well, but very likely came to know the Lord in some way, and gave us the wisdom in Proverbs 31. So that's kind of the structure of the book. Tonight we're talking about chapters 1 through 9. And we're just going to kind of go through this kind of section by section. It is in little mini sections that have little themes. And so let's start right at the beginning, Proverbs chapter 1, verse 1. Let's just start right at the beginning and read just a little bit. It says, the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. Okay. Again, Solomon is the author of the first 29 chapters out of 31 Proverbs. For what? In other words, the first section here, verses 1 through 7, is going to give us the purpose of the book. It is the Proverbs of Solomon for learning what wisdom and discipline are, for understanding insightful sayings, for receiving wise instruction in righteousness, justice, and integrity, for teaching shrewdness to the inexperienced, knowledge and discretion to a young man. A wise man will listen and increase his learning, and a discerning man will obtain guidance for understanding a proverb or a parable, the words of the wise and their riddles. Now take note of verse 7. This is a verse, Proverbs 1:7, that I memorized when I was a kid, and I taught it to my children they're still kids, but as they were growing up. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Years ago, when we were at Langhorne, when our church was met over at Langhorne Road on a Wednesday night, I taught a message on Proverbs 1:7. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. I titled it, You Don't Know Jack. You don't know Jack. You can think you know a lot. And some people do know a lot, but yet they don't know anything, because the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And so you can know a lot of stuff and yet know nothing, because you have not even entered the beginning of knowledge if you don't have the fear of the Lord. Now, pause that thought. Hold on to that thought for just a second. You can flip over if you want to, or you can just follow me. Follow my words. But we're going to flip over to Proverbs 9:10. Again, the first 9 chapters makes up a little section here, right? When we turn to chapter 10, we get into the Proverbs, the line-by-line couplets. And so this is the first verse of the last section, okay, of the first section. In other words, the first 9 chapters. So Proverbs 9:10 says this: the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. When we know God, we immediately have a level of understanding. And the more we know him, the more we understand. The more we fear the Lord in the right kind of way. Okay, and we've talked about fear of the Lord so much, I don't feel like I have to go back over that. But the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So it's just an interesting little bookend here to this introductory section, chapters 1 through 9. The final verse of the first section, the intro section, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And the first verse of the final section of that section, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So there really is a kind of a symmetry here to these first 9 chapters. Okay, beginning in verse 8 of, back to chapter 1. We're going through here the first 9 chapters. Beginning in verse 8, again, we get several little sections, and each section kind of has a little theme. And so the first theme here in verses 8 through 19 is really talking about violence. Don't be talked into joining a gang, killing and robbing people. Even if you make a profit from that, you won't get anything out of it long term, because you're going to have to answer for that. In other words, God's justice in the end. Okay, so right off the bat, you have a murder and robbery. It's kind of a duh. We don't want to get into those things, but Solomon doesn't leave anything unturned here. He doesn't take anything for granted. Not only do you want to be wise in the little things, he wants to make sure you understand to be wise in the big things too. Okay? Beginning in verse 20, so now we're at the end of chapter 1. 20 through 33, the theme is wisdom here. This is our first real specific reference to wisdom and what it all entails. It says, wisdom calls out in the street. She makes her voice heard in the public squares. So we're not just talking about wisdom, it's a personification of wisdom. Wisdom is personified. She is doing things. Well, it's not a she, but it's a way of saying it, a poetic way, a flowery way of talking about what wisdom does. Now, this comes back, particularly chapters 8 and 9, wisdom personified. But this is an introduction to that idea where wisdom is personified. Also in this section, end of chapter 1, this is wisdom talking in the first person. If you receive me, you'll have security and peace. If you reject me, I'll laugh at you. I'm paraphrasing here, verses 20 to 33 of chapter 1. Wisdom is saying this to us. If you reject me, if you reject wisdom, wisdom is going to laugh in your face. And wisdom says, again, personified and speaking in the first person, wisdom says, oh, by the way, I can show you examples of how this has happened in the past. People who have rejected me, wisdom, and it hasn't gone well for them. Okay, chapter 2. My son, ... It's the father's perspective. It's a father talking to a son. Now, Solomon is the author, right? But it's a father talking to a son. Quite a bit of this is that father's perspective. So just think in terms of the son gleaning wisdom from the father. And chapter 2 is part of that for sure. Here's what it says. If you cry out for wisdom and understanding, if you seek it like silver. So now we find out a new piece. It's not just that I want wisdom. It's not just that the fear of the Lord gives me wisdom, but there is a piece on us to actually be active in searching for it. And that's a good word, because sometimes we can do the Christian walk thing, and I'm preaching to myself right now. we can do the Christian walk thing, and we just kind of assume wisdom will just kind of come along for the ride. And I think to a degree that's true, but that's not what this says. We cry out for it, we seek it, so we need to actually ask the Lord for wisdom and not just assume that it's coming along just as we obey, and we'll have wisdom right there with me. A little bit, yeah, I think that's probably true. But to really get into the depths of God's wisdom, we need to be asking for it, probably on a regular basis. Amen? Okay. We're still talking about the theme of this chapter 2. Wisdom will rescue you from the way of evil. It will rescue you from forbidden women. There's a lot of talk about the wrong kind of women in the Proverbs, and particularly these first 9 chapters. And of course, the opposite is true. It's talking to a young man about women, but it could obviously be applied talking to a young woman about men. You want to be in the right relationship, period. You don't want to pursue or forget pursue. You don't want them to pursue you. The kind of person that's described in the Proverbs, the seductive, the seductress, the immoral woman or man, okay? But anyway, wisdom will rescue you from forbidden women. Yeah, okay, that's good. Keep going. Chapters 3 and 4, basically more of the same. All right, chapter 3 begins with the Father's perspective again, the Father talking to the Son. There's more about holding on to the truths that I, the Father, am imparting to you, the Son. There's a word here for us to glean from this. Not all of our fathers are living, okay? But your earthly father, what can you take, and mother for that matter, what can you take away from them? Some of them, maybe there was not much I can take away from them. Maybe they weren't good at giving me wisdom, right? Mine was, praise the Lord. But not every person can say that, right? But there is a godly aspect to the parent-child relationship. There's a respect and honor, even if that person was terrible. There's something about, and this is just a general principle, but certainly when it comes to our fathers and our mothers, take what you can take from that. Remember the good and leave anything that's not good. Don't worry about that part. But we can honor our fathers and mothers, which doesn't necessarily mean we put up with some nonsense if they're a bad character, right? But we can still honor them, and we can glean from them the parts that are good and noteworthy and right and so forth. So anyway, this father is saying good things, and so the son wants to listen. All right. More about wisdom in chapters 3 and 4, okay? Verse 19, the Lord founded the earth by wisdom. So this is new. The Lord uses wisdom to found the earth. And so we find that wisdom is not just a thing that I want, it's actually a divine attribute that God communicates to me. I think we've talked about this before, but in theology, they talk about the communicable attributes of God and the incommunicable attributes of God. In other words, the attributes of God, I'm sure Pastor Jeff talked about this when he talked about A.W. Tozer a few years back. What are the things that God can give us of himself? His love, right? God's love comes from God to us, through us, flows through us. It's a communicable attribute of God. What's an incommunicable attribute? Omnipresence. God is everywhere. He's omniscient. He knows everything. Well, we don't get that, right? It's an incommunicable attribute. But anyway, God's wisdom is a communicable attribute. In other words, we get to partake in it. Okay? All All right, chapter 3 still. Look at verse 25 through 35. This little section deals with treating people fairly. So this is a new little theme. Treat people fairly. Okay. Verse 27, when it is in your power, don't withhold good from the one to whom it belongs. Don't say to your neighbor, go away, come back later, I'll give it to you tomorrow, when it is right there with you. Okay. Treating people fairly in that little section. Chapter 5 now. Let's go on. Back to this woman. Avoid the wrong kind of woman, people. Okay? And avoid the wrong kind of man, too. All right? Look, beginning verse 3. Though the lips of the forbidden woman drip honey and her words are smoother than oil, in the end, she's as bitter as wormwood and as sharp as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps head straight for Sheol. Sheol is the grave. She doesn't consider the path of life. She doesn't know that her ways are unstable. There's a lot in the world that looks good, seems good, feels good, and then you get a hold of it and you realize it's not good. And Solomon is helping us to see that. Now, anybody with a little bit of age on them, which is most of us in this room, know this from experience. Young people, the few that are here, get this now. You know, get this now. Start reading. Young people, read the Proverbs a lot. And get this now so that you don't have to go through some of these things where you realize that was the wrong kind of woman. All right? Verse 8, keep your way far from her. Don't go near the door of her house. There's the instruction of what to do. Don't even mess with it. Okay, then in verse 15, we get the opposite. What happens if you do have a good woman? Enjoy her, right? So, you know, we've got man and woman in marriage. This is a good thing. And this section of chapter 5 feels a little bit like Song of Solomon that we'll get to in a few weeks. And so, you know, drink water from your own cistern, water flowing from your own well. This is my wife. It's not yours. Thank you very much, right? And so you have yours and I have mine, and that's the way it's going to stay, all right? But we enjoy each other. We enjoy, you know, friendships, but we also enjoy the husband-wife relationship. That's its own special thing. Okay, chapter 6, more little sections with more little themes. And we had a question at the beginning of the night on this. Beginning of chapter 6, financial entanglements, financial advice. Don't put up collateral for a friend's debt. Okay, so there's a whole section here on money and financial advice. That is not unique. There are several places throughout where we're going to get some advice on money. Next section, beginning at verse 6. This is chapter 6, verse 6, about work ethic. In other words, don't be lazy. God has ordained work. We are supposed to work. And there's a time for rest, but there's a time for work. Laziness leads to poverty is one of the little thoughts in that section. Verse 12 through 19 is a new section where we're talking about wickedness, avoiding wickedness. And in this section, we have an interesting little part, verses 16 to 19, where it says, 7 things that the Lord hates. Actually, it says he hates 6 things. Yea, even 7 he hates, right? He's this little poetic device, right? Here are the 7 things that the Lord hates. Yes, even an abomination to him. Here they are. Number 1, a proud look. Number 2, a lying tongue. Number 3, hands that shed innocent blood. Number 4, a heart that devises wicked plans. 5, feet that are swift in running to evil. 6, a false witness who speaks lies. And 7, one who sows discord among brethren. We don't want to be in those categories there. Chapter 6, verses 20 to 35, another little bit. And again, this is counterpointed against the Proverbs that start in chapter 10, where you got couplet, 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 couplet. You don't have a big section like this starting in chapter 10. But here we do. And so the end of chapter 6 goes back to the woman. Don't get near that woman. Okay? Avoid the wrong woman. Avoid adultery. Avoid the adulterous woman. One of the lines in here, very interesting. A man is reduced to a crust of bread when you start messing with the wrong woman. His reproach will not be wiped away. Strong words and a strong warning for us to make sure that we find our right person and don't be involved with the wrong person. Chapter 7 is a story of a seductive, immoral woman. So now we get a story. On top of all the counsel to stay away from her, we get a story about it. Couple of interesting lines here, some good imagery that help us to see the unfortunate end for this fella that goes into this seductive, immoral woman. Verse 22, he follows her impulsively like an ox going to the slaughter. What an image. Another verse says he's like a bird darting into a snare. He doesn't know it will cost him his life. The warning in verse 24, now sons, listen to me and pay attention to the words from my mouth. Don't let your heart turn aside to her ways. Don't stray onto her paths, for she has brought many down to death. Her victims are countless. Her house is the road to Sheol, descending to the chambers of death. Woof. Chapters 8 and 9, I mentioned this already, is again wisdom personified. And I'm just going to close this section, by reading all of chapter 8. Wisdom personified. Wisdom is going to be speaking in the first person. I do this and that. It's wisdom who is talking. Here it is, chapter 8, verse 1. Doesn't wisdom call out? Doesn't understanding make her voice heard? So now we get a new piece. It's not just that I'm seeking, but wisdom is calling me too. It's not hiding. It's there to be found, out in the open. Doesn't wisdom call out? Doesn't understanding make her voice heard? Here we go. At the heights overlooking the road at the crossroads, she takes her stand behind the gates of the entry to the city. At the main entrance, she cries out. Here's what she says, verse 4. People, I call out to you. My cry is to mankind. Learn to be shrewd. You who are inexperienced, develop common sense. You who are foolish, listen, for I speak of noble things. This is wisdom talking. And what my lips say is right. For my mouth tells the truth, and wickedness is detestable to my lips. All the words of my mouth are righteous. None of them are deceptive or perverse. All of them are clear to the perceptive and right to those who discover knowledge. Accept my instruction instead of silver, and knowledge rather than pure gold. For wisdom is better than jewels, and nothing desirable can compare with it. I, wisdom, share a home with shrewdness, and have knowledge and discretion. To fear the Lord is to hate evil. I hate arrogant. You say, hate is bad. Hate's a bad thing. Really? Not when it's hating evil. Fear the Lord is to hate evil. Can't have it both ways. The world's going to say, oh, hate, get rid of hate. Well, hate the right things. To fear the Lord is to hate evil. I hate arrogant pride, evil conduct, and perverse speech. This is wisdom still talking. I possess good advice and competence. I have understanding and strength. It is by me that kings reign and rulers enact just law. By me, princes lead, as do nobles and all righteous judges. I love those who love me, and those who search for me find me. That's a good promise. We talked about searching for wisdom So now I know I need to search for wisdom. Now I know that if I do search for wisdom, I will find it. With me, this is verse 18, with me are riches and honor, lasting wealth and righteousness. My fruit is better than solid gold, and my harvest than pure silver. I walk in the way of righteousness along the paths of justice, giving wealth as an inheritance to those who love me and filling their treasuries. Let me just pause for a second. One of the questions that we looked at talked about blessing and riches and stuff like that. Yeah, those are sort of kind of in the mix in a principle kind of a way. But the question was, what does the fear of the Lord lead to? And the direct answer to that is wisdom and knowledge. Going back to Proverbs 1:7, fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Proverbs 9:10, fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Okay, just want to throw that out there so you don't get that wrong at the end of the lesson. Verse 22, still in chapter 8, the Lord made me, this is wisdom still talking, at the beginning of his creation, before his works of long ago. I was formed before ancient times, from the beginning, before the earth began. I was born when there were no watery depths and no springs filled with water. I was delivered before the mountains and hills were established, before he made the land, the fields, or the first soil on earth. I was there when he established the heavens, when he laid out the horizon on the surface of the ocean. When you get the picture, wisdom is with God from the beginning. Before there was all the creation of the world, wisdom is there with God. Why? Because it's one of his attributes. So if God's there, God's wisdom is there. It's not like God woke up one day and found wisdom. Wisdom was with God because it's part of his nature. Okay? 27, I was there when he established the heavens, when he laid out the horizon on the surface of the ocean, when he placed the skies above, when the fountains of the ocean gushed out, when he set a limit for the sea so that the waters would not violate his command, when he laid out the foundations of the earth. I was a skilled craftsman beside him. I was his delight every day, always rejoicing before him. I was rejoicing in his inhabited world, delighting in the human race. And now, my sons, listen to me. Those who keep my ways are happy. Listen to instruction and be wise. Don't ignore it. Anyone who listens to me is happy, watching at my doors every day, waiting by the posts of my doorway. For the one who finds me finds life and obtains favor from the Lord, but the one who misses me harms himself. All who hate me love death. Big amen on that. All right, what a great chapter. Okay, with that, we'll be finished with our topic, and we'll move to our exercise. All right? If anybody wants their own. All right, how we doing? Almost there? 60 seconds. All right. One across. The seductress says, this person is not home. My husband is not home. 2 down. This creature cannot be accused of. 9 across. Yeah, that's right. Let's go to 9 across. A trait of a slacker. Wait, what? Ant. A-N-T. Hold on. Let's get 9 across and then we'll come back to it. A trait of the slacker. Laziness. Proverbs 6 addresses the problem of laziness. Don't be lazy. And it says in that passage, you lazy person, you go check out an ant. You want to see what working looks like? You go look at an ant. It says that in Proverbs 6. 2 down is ant. This creature cannot be accused of laziness. Ant. 3 down. He shall die for lack of instruction. Proverbs 5:23. Okay? That brings us to 5 across. Several chapters are written from the perspective of, yes, the father. Son, listen to my, blah, blah, blah. 5 down. The blank of the Lord. The fear of the Lord is the beginning. Now, we said the fear of the Lord was the beginning of 2 things. Proverbs 1:7, fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Proverbs 9:10, fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Okay? So one of those goes in 6 down, and it's the only one that has that amount of letters. Okay? 6 down, you think it's what's in your head, but it's really what's in your heart when you have a right view of God. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. 6 down. Okay, 8 across, discernment. Understanding is correct. Seven down, Proverbs 1-9 is about wisdom. 4 down, when a man yields to the crafty woman, it is like an ox going to the slaughter. 11 across. 7 down is, what's 7 down? Wisdom. Wisdom is blank. More precious than rubies. 11 across, more precious than rubies. Okay, I don't know where we are. We already did laziness, 9 across. Let's go 10 down. Yeah, Solomon wrote Proverbs 1-29. 12 across. When it is in your power, don't withhold good from the one it belongs to. We read that verse just a second ago. Okay, 13 across. 1 across, which is the husband, has a wife whose steps lead to Sheol and descend to death. Yes, very good. 14 down. Don't hang out with people who say, let us lie in wait to shed blood. And then 15 across, honor the Lord with your possessions. And I think that's it, right? That's all of them? Okay. All right. Second look, I want to talk tonight for just a second about causing division or not causing division. Let's take a look back at Proverbs 6 and specifically 6:19. This is in the little passage that I read where it says the Lord hates 6 things. Actually, it's 7 things. They're an abomination to him. And it lists out these things, and you have things like devising wicked plans, swift to run to evil, a false witness who speaks lies. And then you have this one, the very last one, someone who sows discord among the brethren. It's one of those things that might seem like it's not as bad as maybe some other things on the rest of the list. Sow discord among the brethren. Okay, well, it's a little bit more than just gossiping. Gossiping would be like the low end of this, but you're really trying to bring discord. You're trying to disunify people. And that is not just a little problem. Apparently, God hates it. That's a strong word. And I want to look at some New Testament references that kind of reinforce this. This principle is not merely an Old Testament principle. It comes back in the New Testament, so let's look at it. Romans 16, beginning in verse 17, says this, "Now I urge you, brethren, note those who cause divisions and offenses contrary to the doctrine which you learned, and avoid them. For those who are such do not serve our Lord Jesus Christ, but their own belly." That word belly means their really kind of their soul. In a soulish way, they just feed their own soul. They don't care about anybody else's soul. It has to do with the man, not my arms and my legs, but myself. I am in it for myself is a good way to say it. And by smooth words, and it sounds like the woman in Proverbs, doesn't it? By smooth words and flattering speech deceives the hearts of the simple. Matthew 5:9, this is in the Beatitudes, "Blessed are the peacemakers." It's the opposite. "For they shall be called the sons of God." So the opposite of one who sows discord is a peacemaker. John 17, Jesus prays. He's about to be taken away to be crucified. John 17, he prays for himself, then he prays for his disciples, then he prays for us. And in this moment where he's about to be taken away to be crucified, Jesus prays to the Father for us, all those, let me read it, verse 20. "I do not pray for these alone," meaning the disciples, "but also for those who will believe in me through their word." That's for us. Now watch, verse 21. What does Jesus pray for us? "That they all may be one." What a weird prayer request. I mean, think of all the things Jesus could have prayed, right? As the last thing he prayed before he got on the cross. This is really important. More important than probably we would think, right? We wouldn't put being one on the top of our list of prayer requests. But Jesus says, "I pray that they may all be one, as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that you sent me, and that the glory which you gave me I have given them, that they may be one." He's still talking about unity. "Be one as we are one, I in them and you in me, that they may be made perfect in one, and that the world may know that you have sent me and have loved them as you have loved me." That's what Jesus prayed for us right before he went to be crucified. The point is, in the Old Testament, Proverbs, in the New Testament, several times this is a principle that doesn't go away. God hates someone who sows discord and blesses the peacemakers, and he loves unity, and it's very important to him for us to be unified. That may not seem as important to us as it is to God. You know, you read these lists of things, in the New Testament, the epistles. You get this list of like, don't do all these things. These are terrible things, right? And the list goes like murder, robbery, and then like disobedience to parents. And you're like, wait, what? That's in that same list? There are some things that are important to God. And we think, oh, that's kind of lower level. And this is one of them, all right? Yes. Yes.
That's a big deal.
They sure can. Yes, that is a big deal. And that is what we're going to talk about in the discussion. Why? This is for you to kind of wrestle with. Why do you think it's a big deal? We just saw that it is a big deal. God cares about unity, okay? We can see that he cares about it from all the verses we just read. Your job is to figure out, why do you think that's so important to him? Talk about it. All right. Well, I'm sure we had some different thoughts on this. I'm sure there's all kinds of thoughts we could have on this. Okay, I'm seeing a pointer. Okay, Amy's got something. Hit it. Yeah, I would agree with that. God is he is the triune God. He is one. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And he is triune, and Father, Son, and Spirit are in unity. And when we are in unity, we reflect him. That's good. Okay, what else? Very important. Very important. What else? Who else had a thought? Yes. Disunity can turn to hatred. What else? Why is it important that we be unified? Yes. Good. Kingdom results are going to increase. Good. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, good. Good. All right. Anything else? Yes.
Our whole physical body is supposed to work in unity. Everything communicates with each other. Like one of our parts is not working well, everything else is fails.
Right.
So therefore, it's the same thing kind of like we're all
Right.
supposed to be part of the body. If one leg or an arm is not working well, and there's things going on,
Right.
the rest of the body.
You can't do the things that we're supposed to be doing. He's the head, and he's communicating to us, arm, go over here, and wave, or whatever it is he wants us to do. We can't do those things if we're not a body that's working together. All right. Good. All right. Keep going. Celebration of knowledge. 3 questions. 3 questions that many of you answered the same way on the first time. So we'll see if they're the same the second time. Number 1 tonight was, most of the Proverbs were written by, is it David, Solomon, Rehoboam, or Lemuel? "100% of people say Solomon." The correct answer is Solomon. Congratulations. Second question. All of the following are themes of Proverbs 1 through 9, except financial counsel, work ethic, temple sacrifices, avoiding the wrong kind of woman. One of those is not a theme covered by Proverbs 1 through 9. Which one is it? "100% of people say temple sacrifices." Correct answer is temple sacrifices. Yeah, by process of elimination, it did talk about financial counsel. It did have work ethic, don't be lazy, as a theme. Certainly had the theme of avoiding the wrong kind of woman several times. So therefore, it had to be the other one. And the third and final question for tonight: the fear of the Lord leads to knowledge and wisdom, blessing and riches, power and glory, anxiety and depression. Now, as a principle, not as a promise, but as a principle, it could potentially also lead to blessing and riches. But that is not the direct That is not the direct answer. And it's not going to be a promise type of an answer where in every case it will lead to that. But it will lead to knowledge and wisdom in every case. Fear of the Lord. All right. Good. Let's go to personal study goal. Proverbs 10 through, man, I keep dropping this thing. 10 through 20. 10 through 20 for next week. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is college basketball season once again. We are 1 month away from March Madness. And so it is time for us to begin here at APC March Gladness. We are in our third divisional round of voting playoffs. Drum roll, please, AKA hit it. Cole, actually don't hit it. Just as a reminder, this is where, because it's been a while since we did this. 4 brackets, okay? Abraham won the Patriarchs division. He will go up against the winner of the Prophets division at a later point in time. We had Moses, that was an automatic qualifier from the Wilderness division. He beat Joshua, was our winner from the Promise division. And so Moses, that winner, is going to face off against the winner of the Kingdom division in the Final Four. Now, that brings us to the Kingdom division. Okay, go ahead, Cole. It's time to meet our contestants for the Kingdom division. We're talking about the books of 1 Samuel through Song of Solomon. You're going to have 2 subdivisions of 8 people each. You have the King and Queen subdivision. You have the Mighty Man subdivision, each with 8 people in it. These are the first 5 people who missed the cut. Ready for this? Uzziah, Eli, Kenaniah, Zadok the priest, and ironically, none of the mighty men show up in the mighty men subdivision. All right. So here we go. Kings and Queens subdivision first. Remember that these are seeded by the number of references. It's kind of a random but way for me to do it without being biased. The 26 references. Give it up for Jotham. That's not much giving it up. He's pretty good dude. 53 references. Your 7th seed in the Kings and Queens subdivision is Esther. 55 references. 6th seed Josiah. 59 references. 5 seed Asa. 86 references. 4 seed Jehoshaphat. 132 references, 3 seed Hezekiah. 2 left in that subdivision, 289 for Solomon. You know what's coming, don't you? 1 seed is David, 1,105 references. That's Kings and Queens, ladies and gentlemen, Kings and Queens. Go to the Mighty Men subdivision. The winner of Kings and Queens will go against the winner of the Mighty Men. Here we go, 8 seed. Believe it or not, Nehemiah's name is only mentioned 8 times in the Bible, but he gets in there as the 8 seed. Ezra, 26 references, 7 seed. Nathan, the prophet, 36 references, comes in at the 6 seed. Asaph, 39 references, 5 seed. Job, 59 references, 4 seed. Mordecai, 62 references, 3 seed. Jonathan, 108. Who's going to be number 1 from the Mighty Men? It's not a king. And the range is from Song of Solomon all the way back to what? Samuel, 143 references, gets the 1 seed for Mighty Men. All right. Thank you. You can pause. Or that was perfect time. Come on. All right, so your brackets look like this. Whichever one that one is, I think that's the Kings and Queens. And then there's the Mighty Men. I have a paper. It's not a ballot per se, but anyway, you can take this home and think through. Now, this is real. I know it's a game, but you're going to get something out of this. When you think through and you think, okay, what did Samuel do? What was he all about? And you're comparing him to Nehemiah. It takes some real thought about two Bible characters, right? I mean, that's a real activity, okay? And so you got 8 of these, all right? Samuel against Nehemiah, 1 verses 8. Job versus Asaph, 4 verses 5. Jonathan versus Ezra, 2 verses 7. Mordecai versus Nathan, 3 verses 6. Kings and queens, David against Jotham. Jehoshaphat, 4 seed against Asa, the 5 seed. Solomon, 2 seed against Esther, the 7 seed. Hezekiah, 3 seed versus Josiah, 6 seed. All right, so I'll give you these papers. You can think through that a little bit. That way, when we come back next week to vote, you know how it works. You're going to argue for your person, but if you haven't thought through your rationale, what are you going to argue, right? You just, well, I think he's cute. Well, how did you know? You weren't there, you know? Okay, now, just in case, you might have thought 2 names are missing. Elijah and Elisha, I'm lumping them with prophets. Okay? Just in case that bothered anybody. All right? All right, that's it for tonight. I'm going to pass out the papers and have a great week.
Hey, this is Pastor Jeff from All People's Church, and we thank you for taking the time to tune in to one of our messages. We encourage you to like and subscribe our YouTube page so that you'll be notified every time we post new content. We pray that the Lord blesses you through what we're doing.